Hi, welcome to Creating Kindness Video!
Hello and welcome to this month's Creating Kindness Design Team Video Hop. I'm Jenny Hall. This month our design team is creating with color inspiration. Everybody on the team has created a project with one color theme in common. So if you would like to hop along and see what all of my friends are doing, we've taken this wonderful opportunity to create projects that inspire you. I'm going to create a mama bird and a baby bird, and I'm using some spring colors for my inspiration. I'm stamping with Best Birds stamp set from Stampin' Up onto a piece of glossy white cardstock. This is also called photo cardstock. I'm using Versamark clear sticky ink, and once I add color with a sponge brayer on top of it, it's going to be protected underneath. So the image of the bird's nest is now going to appear white with all of the tiny little details in between the stamped lines showing up color. It's a wonderful technique. If you have not tried it before, I encourage you to really give it a shot. The colors that I'm using today are Soft Sky, Pear Pizzazz, and So Saffron. Working from the outside in, I've added the light blue, and then I've gone really stronger with the yellow, and then the innermost is the strongest with the green. After I have applied everything with the sponge brayer, I make sure to give it a blast with a heat tool to be sure all of the ink is dry. I've stamped the bird image onto a scrap of watercolor paper in smoky slate regular dye ink. This is going to allow me to use some of that dye ink to activate and turn into part of the color that I'm adding in with my aqua painter. The aqua painter is going to pick up some of the ink from the stamp pad lids, but it's also going to mix in with the gray of the stamped lines. This is not going to be so much as a no-line watercolor, as you will see some of the shadows of the stamped image in the completed project, but it's not going to draw any attention. Instead, I'm relying on color placement to move the eye around and not so much notice all of those stamped lines. As I add color into the different areas that are larger areas, not the tiny little feet, but I'm using the pressure on the barrel to push the ink out at the same time as it hits the paper. This, I hope, is not confusing, but it's the easiest way that I can explain how to get the ink transferred to the watercolor paper and not leave those indelible marks that we can't get away. On the same scrap of paper, I have added a little watercolor wash area that I've die cut the tiny bird. This little tiny bird is a great proportion to be the baby to the mommy bird. I've grabbed one of my gray Stampin' Blends alcohol markers and gone around the edge of the baby bird so that it will help give the emulation like the large bird. So the large bird was stamped in gray and the baby bird was outlined in gray. So it's going to keep these two items kind of carrying the same theme. I've stamped and heat embossing the sentiment, and I would like to bring your attention to how it looks with the sentiment embossed over the color versus under the color. So the bird's nest is that Versamark underneath the color, and then as a contrast, just to show you what it would look like for it to be not under the coloring but over the coloring, I have heat embossed it in white on top. So what I notice is that even though the bird's nest is a little bit darker on the white area, it still fades back and it doesn't leave any texture at all to the finished project. However, when you heat emboss on top of the color, you're adding a raised area with that embossing powder. So it does definitely bring the words to the foreground. It brings the words to, draws the eye in, and it has a different color tone. So if you struggle, or if you wonder if you should stamp and then add the color over it, I suggest that getting some dimension built into your project by first using that bird's nest and then color over that, you're going to get white on white, but of a different tone. And that's not something that's easy to do. White on white is okay, but how about different tones of white on white? So this is just one suggestion to help you with creating more dimension on your projects. I've added both of the birds now to the project, and I'm adding the baby bird with a little bit of Wink Estella just to bring up the sparkle factor. And I've added some Vellum scrapped leaf punch behind it to also carry through that white on white. That's going to help the colors be seen through the vellum but not detract away from the birds. So the birds in the background are my color effects, and everything else complements the design, but it doesn't take away from it. I hope that you've enjoyed this little peek into design this week. All of the products that I have used today are available now in my online store. You can get to my online store by visiting my blog at jennystampsup.com and click on Shop Now. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.